Okay, so I mean, if anybody else comes, so we should choose the show captions and then choose translation settings. Okay, so this is the Civic Technology Seminar of Busan, and civic technology means, or we understand it as a community, community-led teams creating tools that support government decision making. I'm thinking of a gathering place where programmers, artists, journalists can join. We have a Kakao channel. You can join for announcements of the seminar or projects. Kakao here is the most popular app for communication in Korea. So you can join this channel and you can hear about our projects or news, etc. We have already one project where deepfakes started 5 years ago. People hear about it, but because mostly men work in AI, nobody pay attention. And so what we propose is a reading group for women, a place where women can ask any question. We are reading a book on deep learning. It is focused on programming, so there is no math. Don't worry. The book is in Korean and English, so if you know Korean, you can just read it in Korean. If you know Spanish, you can just read it in Spanish. It's already translated to Spanish. So the idea is that people read the book, and then the next meeting, they just ask me questions and so on. It's free, but the idea is that we allow more women to learn about AI. And next month, we are going to have Casey Yuseo talking about tech and innovation in the humanitarian settings. It's really cool because she goes to war zones and help the population. Like if you're in the war zone, you don't have a way to, maybe there is no internet, so how do you get funding to escape the area? So she goes to war zones and brings technology. And then on December 5, we will have Alejandro Aguirre, who is going to talk about cyber girlfriends. Okay. And so Pablo might not be aware of this, but there was this competition of beauty. And then one of the questions that the participants were asked is, if I am more attractive in a deepfake video, how can I close the gap with the real me? And this is in the country that is struggling with the deepfake crisis. So I thought it might be good to start talking about what is feminism and maybe why do we care about feminism. So today we have Pablo Den from the Cognitive Education Center, Texas. Pablo, please.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Eric. Yes, I am Pablo Chiw. I am a PhD in social science. I'm gonna start presenting the slideshow. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
All right. So I work for the Cognitive Education Center in Austin, Texas, and I also work for the University of Baja California Sur in Mexico. In the University of Baja, I support the gender coordination. I train people, teachers, and work with students to understand uh, what is feminism, what is gender violence, and how to develop strategies to prevent violence happening, right? So for this presentation, I wanted to talk about masculinities. I'm gonna close a little bit the window here. So, what is masculinity studies? Well, it's a branch of gender studies that comes from feminist theory. And the feminist theory, what they did was to analyze a systemic oppression from males to women. So just because you are a woman you have less rights, you are more likely to receive violence, and you are supposed to be subordinated to the authority of a male. So they analyze this situation, and even though in that point of time it was seen as natural, they start questioning why does this needs to be like that. So from those questionings, we start having movements from women that wanted a change. The first movement was the women that wanted the right of voting, and that was known as the first wave of feminism. Now, even though it was feminism who first described this oppression against women, some scholars realize that we as males are also under the same type of oppression. This means that not because we are males, we are in a free world for us. We are also victims of violence and patriarchal oppression. So let's go into explore more about this. And we have certain key points that I would like to define. First, patriarchy, a social system in which masculine men, this is very important, masculine men, hold primary power and dominate roles in leadership, authority, and privilege, often establishing norms that subordinate women and other marginalized groups. Now, within the patriarchy structure, we have two genders. Patriarchy is binary, has two genders, two categories, the masculine and the feminine. The masculine is considered superior, and the feminine is considered devalued. Right now, traditionally, on the patriarchal law, the masculine must govern over the feminine, and the feminine should be serving the masculine desire. So in this perspective, the place of women is serving whatever the male wants, right? So in this, and under their eyes, we don't have equal gender, but we have one that's more valuable than the other one. All right. So the question that I would like to explore is, what do you mean about a masculine man? So, and this is the question that comes with the masculinity studies. So, it's not only males who have the right to govern, it must be a masculine man. So we asked 50 Mexicans in the university who was more masculine. Can you guess the most popular answer? So on the left, we have A. Isaac Pitbull Cruz. On the right, we have Saul Canelo Alvarez. And even though they are in a very masculine competition where you have violence, endurance, bodybuilding, based on the perception of the Mexican people in the south of Baja University, one of them is more masculine, is considered more masculine than the other one. Can you guess which one is it? So most of the people in the survey decided that Isaac Pitbull Cruz was the most masculine. Now you might wonder why, because the other one seems to be more muscular, right? And the answer was aggression. Isaac Pitbull Cruz was perceived as more aggressive. We have another example. Who is more masculine? King Carlos Charles III or B. Mexican expresion Andrés Manuel López Obrador? The response was Mexican ex-president. Now, the next question, we have two singers. A. Juan Gabriel, Mexican singer, and B. Alejandro Fernández. So who is more masculine to them, to those 50 Mexicans? And the answer was no. None of them is masculine. Now, if you don't know those singers, you might be very confused. Why? Right? So, according to the cultural and the perception of people, Alejandro Fernández is believed to be gay or bisexual, and Juan Gabriel was openly gay. So people, as they know this, then they disqualify them from the masculinity competition. In their perception, they are no longer masculine. Now, I ask them, well, what if you take away the sexual preference? Who would be more masculine? And the answer was Alejandro Fernández. So, there are certain elements that define masculinity within a society. In the case of Andrés Manuel, we have the perception of patriotism, stoicism, resilience, protectiveness towards the people, hard work, discipline, leadership, and an impressive exercise of political power. With Pitbull, the perception was determination, aggressiveness, self-neglect. He's willing to disregard the possibility of harm. So he's more aggressive and doesn't care what happens to his body. And he also looks like a pit bull, like a dog, right? So he's perceived as more masculine because of aggression. Now, we have the case of Saúl El Canelo, who is the characteristic that makes him masculine, that he's strong, he's wealthy, he's successful, has intelligence, but he has less points because when he fights, he's not that aggressive, and his boxing style is more protective from harm. Right? So because he takes care of himself, he is less masculine. Now, we can identify masculinity when we see it. We can say this person is more or less masculine, but can we define it? When we talk about masculinity, we are talking about a social construct or a social agreement. Say that a tradition or group of people in power position decided what was going to be considered masculine. If you possess those characteristics, If you embody the characteristics of masculinity, then you become part of a privileged group that's organized within a hierarchical structure of dominance. So the more masculine you are, the more privileged you can access. But the less masculine you are, the more likely you are to be receiving violence. So what we have in the patriarchal society is a hierarchical ladder where the most masculine male is the one that calls the shot and subordinates the others. Now we have a line. Once your identity is not perceived as masculine, you fall under the line and hate crimes begin. Violence intensifies the closer you are to the bottom. And in this particular situation, we have the Bolivian feminist theorist, Julieta Paredes, who said that the most affected person in this ladder tends to be the indigenous woman who is not heterosexual, and that is poor, right? On the top, we have the white, rich, Western male, who is also Christian in terms of religion. Now, the identity of Western society is built around three fundamentals: must not. We must not act like children. We must not appear to be women, and we must not appear to be homosexuals. Kids, when they are trying to build their identity, they observe the violence that happens or occurs to the people who act like children, that cannot look like women, or that might be gay or homosexual. And then they understand they are not supposed to be like them. Therefore, when kids are building their identity in the patriarchal society, they know they only have one option. And the range of possibilities is limited. So the kids have to take traits, characteristics, styles only from whatever is considered masculine. These limitations in terms of options is what we understand like the masculinity closet. The closet symbolizes the restriction of possibility. It only offers the prescribed options for existence, preference, self-representation, self-identification, and coexistence. In the closet dictates how you can be and exist. Now, it's other people who build the closet. It's other people who determine your options. And you must stay within the closet and obey. So the closet forces you to choose only the predetermined options available within masculinity. Then masculinity dictates how men are supposed to be, feel, act, desire, look, love, achieve, believe, care. Everything we do is dictated by masculinity. What happens to those who dare to disobey? What happens when I don't want to dress only with what is acceptable by society and I decide to buy a pink t-shirt or I decide to uh, wear a dress? Well, discipline happens. What is discipline? What is social discipline? It's a concept defined by Michel Foucault as the mechanism of power that regulates the behavior of individuals in society. In the moment that the peers in a group realize that somebody is misbehaving, they feel the responsibility to discipline them. How do they do? With violence, by ridiculing, by exercising bullying. They have to let the person know that they have to change how they are behaving, and they must behave like the rest. Otherwise, violence will happen. We as males then are not free of being who we are. If we want to be accepted, if we want to have opportunities, we need to limit our freedom and adapt. Now, we analyze the hyper-masculine social structures, the ones that have power and that are entirely, in most of cases, created, formed, and directed by males. And we have the drug cartel, we have the army, and the church. Now, even though they might be antagonic, for example, the cartel and the army, or the army and the church, they have something in common. What do they have in common? They have a hierarchy which implies or demands obedience. So the hitman from the cartel is known as sicario. And even though there is a lot of songs and movies in the Mexican culture about the sicarios or the cartel hitmen, they are not free to choose their action. They must obey their boss. So they are obedient. The same happens with every single soldier. From the bottom to the top, all of them have to obey. So the price of being accepted in a masculine group is to be obedient. Here we have a problem. The problem between being free and self-determined, or being accepted and obedient to the desire from others. Carlos Monsiváis tells us something more about masculinity. Men must uncritically obey the precepts of hegemonic masculinity. What does this mean? That we all have to accept whatever is proposed as masculinity, and we have to obey it. We have to follow it without criticizing it, without questioning it. We must do it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't make sense. Now, the obedient masculine male has to be subordinated to chains of commands. And it doesn't matter where it is. It would be at work, between friends, or in social groups. The males are organized based on their masculinity. Beta, we have alpha males, which are the most dominant, the ones that call the shots. And we have beta men, who are the ones that have to subordinate. Those are the ones who frequently suffer harassment from the alpha male. And here is where we can observe the oppression. In the patriarchal ladder, even though we are males, we also suffer the same oppression and violence, although not in the same intensity as if we were a woman or a trans woman. The more feminine you are, the more likely you are to be murdered. Because the patriarchal society hates femininity. So, life for the obedient males is nothing but a theater play. They are actors in life who have to perform their masculinity. They have to hide who they truly are, so nobody sees them, so nobody hurts them, and they perform. A lot of the violence that males commit against women or other subordinated groups is not an authentic desire to hurt, but it is an action pushed by the supposition or the understanding that they must act based on what is expected for them. Now, what is the new masculinities movement? We said in the beginning that it comes from the feminist theory. So the new masculinities analyzes the oppression from alpha males to other males and invites to disobey hegemonic masculinity and allows males for self-determination. Don't hide in the closet. Be who you are. And we are not talking exclusively about sexual preference. We are talking about self-determination. You have the right to express yourself as you feel, to love as you want, and to choose based on who you are and not in what is expected from you. At the end, the new masculinities propose freedom and self-determination. And that's my presentation.
Okay, I'm gonna stop recording so that we can ask questions. But first, thank you so much for uh, accepting to talk. So I'm gonna stop the recording now, and